So there's an ongoing discussion about whether materialism is a good thing or a bad thing. On the one side, you've got people who will tell you that being materialistic, all it's doing is feeding your ego and insecurity, and it's bad for those reasons as well as for general like consumerism as well as obsolescence of items. And on the flip side, you've got people who will tell you that you should be materialistic or you should aspire to have materialistic things and that it's okay to want those things. Now, the problem that I have with those kinds of videos is that it puts people into one of two camps, and it's very directive that you have to do this, versus kind of acknowledging two important variables that aren't actually included. The first is nuance. So what I mean by that is that people are different. They come from different backgrounds, they've had different upbringings, they have different aspirations and reasons for those aspirations. And the second variable that's generally failed to be accounted for is duality. Oftentimes, people will bounce between two different sorts of wants and needs during different parts of their life. And I'm certainly guilty of this too. There are periods where I will feel materialistic, and there's periods where I'll feel completely detached from all materialism. And another example I'll give you is someone like, let's say, Alex Becker, right? He was, if you look at some of his older videos from a few years ago, he was, he had a Lamborghini, he had like an orange Lamborghini in his garage where he was filming videos from. Then he did a complete 180, got rid of all material possessions except for some clothing in his apartment and his work stuff. And then he's come back now, only recently, after a few years of doing that, to having another Lamborghini again and going back to what he did before. There's even a meme about the duality of man, where a person will want one thing and then they'll want something else, not too long after, which are in direct conflict of each other. And that's pretty common. So in this video, instead of telling you how to live your life and whether you should or you shouldn't be materialistic, instead I'm just going to provide you a mental model that you can use, a series of questions that you can ask yourself to determine whether or not it's a good thing. Because believe it or not, sometimes having materialism in your life is probably a good thing, right? It's a way to sometimes reward your brain. And if you continuously repress that, that's normally when you repress anything psychologically versus processing it, it ends up biting you down the line when it all sort of untangles and unfolds. So actually acknowledging that and potentially giving into it a little bit is probably a good thing for you, like psychologically. The other reason why I'm making this video is if you're someone that's ambitious, you're probably going to fall into that category of not sure, being unsure if you should or you shouldn't want something. So let's get straight into it. The first thing is to identify what you want long term. So for example, if your goal is to build, say, a six-figure a year business, right, that lets you work a few hours a week or a few hours a day, you've got a bunch of VAs, for example, who are automating some of your manual processes, and you can go travel the world. If that's your goal, you're going to have a completely different operating system to somebody whose goal is to build the next Amazon. You're going to make radically different decisions. Neither answer is right or wrong. It's just about what you feel most compelled towards. Next, after you've written it down, write down the actual item that you want in specificity. So don't just say, I want a fast car. Say you want a specific car. Maybe that was like a Lamborghini, for example, like a Lamborghini Huracan or a Lamborghini Aventador SVJ or whatever. Like write down the specific thing that you're looking for. Or if you want a watch, for example, I'm a big watch guy. He says not wearing a watch. Then write down the specific make, the specific model, the reference number. Write it out versus keeping it general. Step 3 is to identify if you actually want it, right? A lot of times when people buy or want materialistic things, it's not for them, it's to show other people. And that's okay, by the way. There's nothing actually inherently wrong with having that desire, because that's actually very, very human, right? If you think about human beings as a whole, we're evolved to try to climb as high as we can on the social hierarchy, right, for our own survival. And before it was a test of, say, strength, or as a test of just showing something off, so showing an admirable quality to potential mates back in the Paleolithic era, in the modern day, it's about often associated with status, that equivalency from being a Neanderthal to now, is represented by status, by having specific things that are genuinely difficult to get. So by showing off that you have a car or a specific type of watch, or you live in a specific type of house, you're basically showing that you are higher in the social hierarchy compared to other people, because obtaining the thing is really, really difficult in the first place. Now, the way to identify if you're doing it for yourself or not is to ask yourself this question. If nobody in the world could ever know or find out that you have this item, would you still want it? So for example, if your goal is to buy a specific watch, but nobody would ever see you wearing that watch, they'll never even know that you've had that watch. It doesn't even, that the correlate, like the linkage between you and this watch doesn't even exist in their mind. Would you still buy it? If the answer is yes, then you're doing it for you. If the answer is no, then you're doing it for somebody else. Again, no right or wrong answer here, but just identifying whether you are doing it for yourself or someone else can actually help you. Because if you are doing it for someone else, after you buy it, you may still feel pretty good if you do show it to other people, right? But if you don't meet that need, I guess, of showing it to other people, you're going to end up feeling very disappointed. You're going to be pretty miserable. You're not going to care as much about the thing. The next question is, why do you want it? Write down the actual strong, compelling reasons for actually wanting that item. So for example, let's say it is a watch, right? Or maybe it's a specific type of clothing. Maybe it's a suit, for example. Why do you want it? Is it because it's going to make you feel more confident? Is it because it's going to help you accomplish your longer term objective? I don't know. Write down the actual reason what it is. Is it because you want to show off or you want to prove people wrong? Write down the genuine, down to like the root cause of why you actually want a specific item. Then ask yourself, what emotion are you trying to satisfy as a result of having that item? So perhaps it's confidence. For example, let's say you're buying a watch because you want to feel confident, or maybe like for example, like for me, like when it comes to watches, I realize I'm gonna end up sounding like I'm trying to pitch people into getting into watch collecting. I'm not. But for me, watches, the reason why I like watches, I couldn't care less if somebody sees me wearing a watch or not. Like, I'll wear a Casio and I'll still love that Casio to pieces. And the reason being is because of the story it represents for me, right? So if I have a specific watch, it's because it's associated to a specific memory. Like, I don't buy watches. I rarely ever buy a watch. Like, I never buy watches at all. I think I've maybe only ever bought 2 watches in my entire life. Everything else I've never actually bought. Like, it's just generally been like a gift or something. So if I have a watch, and it doesn't matter what the price tag is, for me, it represents a story about a certain period of my life, right? And I also like learning about, let's say, histories of different watches. I also like learning about the movements, even if I don't own the watch, by the way. Like, I think watches are just really, really interesting as a space. And for me, I don't really care about, it's not about price tag as the value. The price tag itself isn't the determinant of value for me. It's about why I like that watch. There are watches that are stupidly expensive. There are watches that are like, like that are very, very affordable. Like, if you look at like a Casio F91W, that's like £5. I like that way more than some stupidly overpriced watch, right? That looks flashy, but doesn't really do it for me. It doesn't really make me feel any sort of connection to it. So what is the need? And perhaps sometimes if you are feeling a watch, maybe it fills you with gratitude, for example, right? Because or maybe it feels nostalgia. Maybe it's confidence as well, that you're wearing something, or maybe you accomplished a goal and you bought an item to represent that. And whenever you're using that item, it gives you feelings of confidence. And that can be a car as well, right? Like, that's another reason some people do buy nicer cars, is to give themselves a feeling of confidence. So identify what's the deeper emotion that you're trying to unlock. But it's okay. It's generally better to try to have that emotional feeling, to try to build that emotion from an internal state rather than external. But there's nothing actually inherently wrong completely if you have a little bit of if having a material urge helps you increase that feeling slightly. There's nothing wrong with that. It becomes a problem when you're entirely dependent on an external thing to make you feel a certain way. That's when it becomes a problem. But otherwise, having like a watch, for example, that makes you feel a little bit more confident, that's not going to be a bad thing, right? So that's the next question to ask. Then ask yourself, how does buying X, so that specific item that you've written, help you to accomplish your longer term objective, right? Like, it's not about does this, yes or no, it's how does it. Tell yourself a story of why this actually would, and see if it's compelling enough, right? If the story is you want to buy an expensive watch because it's going to make you feel more confident, and you're going into meetings with potential customers, and it's going to make you feel more confident, that's a great story, right? That's fine. If you genuinely believe it, then that's fine. If it's something that you feel like you're writing down and you're like, I don't know if I believe this, then it's not compelling enough. Then it's probably not a good idea to buy it. Next is if you would personally feel happy with it. Like, if you own that item, do you generally feel happier? Yes or no? Most of the times it's probably going to be yes, right? Because if you own something, you're going to enjoy it. But over time, that novelty sort of wears off, and you kind of fall into that sort of hedonic treadmill where you're constantly. Is hedonic treadmill is it hedonic treadmill, or is it it's not Dunning-Kruger effect. I sometimes mix the two up, but you know that I think it's the hedonic treadmill. You get something, you like it for a short period of time, novelty wears off, you want something else, and sort of the cycle basically repeats. I think that's the hedonic treadmill. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, by the way. And again, this comes down to an internal state. Like, if you feel some sense of pride or you feel some sense of happiness as a result of having that thing, that's okay to give into that indulgence. It's probably okay. It's probably a good thing, to be honest, to give into that indulgence. Next is to ask yourself if you can actually afford it, right? And I don't just mean financially, I mean mentally as well, based on what your longer term objectives are. So for example, if your goal is to build the next Amazon, you need to be extremely focused on having the best product or best service to make sure that your customers or clients are very, very happy, and to make sure your team and your systems to make sure your team is extremely happy, and make sure you have really efficient systems that keep getting better and better and better, right? And if your goal is to just, to have a smaller like lifestyle business, you don't need to worry about any of those things, right? So whenever you acquire any sort of item materially, you don't just pay for it with capital, you pay for it with mental bandwidth. So for example, let's say you buy some cars. Let's say you buy a car, right? The weight associated with that isn't just the amount of money you spent to buy the car, but it's also the thoughts that you're going to be thinking about. Oh, do I need to do maintenance on it? Do I need to refuel the car? Are there any damages? What if someone breaks into it, for example, right? The little fear that you might have if someone like steals your car, like all of those things, it can lead into like a death by a thousand cuts sort of situation if you are going to start accumulating a lot of material things that you're worried about, right? Especially if owning that material thing makes up a lot of the capital that you have, right? So if you saved up a decent amount of money, or you've worked and you've been able to, maintain discipline with your spending, and you spend half or 70% of your money to accumulate one thing, that's going to put you into it's going to put you in a state of stress. It's probably going to make you more miserable as a result of having it than if you just didn't have it. So ask yourself if you believe that having that item is going to add a ton of extra mental weight for you. If it is, might not be the best idea, or at least not at that moment, right? Until you can do other things whereby you can own the item without the added without taking a massive amount of mental bandwidth. So if you own an item, let's say it's a car, right, but you don't live in a nice neighborhood, perhaps a better idea is to use a portion of your money to move into a nicer neighborhood, whether that's renting a flat, for example, in a nicer area, in a safer area that maybe has a garage, and then buying the car, right? Whereby you're not going to be worried if someone's going to steal it or not, because it's secure. And finally, the question to ask yourself if you actually should indulge in a material desire is, what are the consequences of having it and what are the consequences of not having it? And just write that out like in parallel, like next to each other. So here's the consequences if I have it, here's the consequences if I don't have it. And write it out and see which feels more compelling. Again, there isn't like an abstract, there isn't like a fixed numerical method here to actually deciding if a materialistic desire for a specific item is a good thing or a bad thing. It's really a gut check. And that's all these questions are. All of these questions that I've basically outlined, they're not asking you to calculate some specific variable. They're kind of just giving your gut some sort of direction. And it's like what Tony Robbins says, right? If you ask the right questions, you'll get the right answers. And what you might find is that a lot of the things that you think you want, you don't actually care about. You're just doing it for other people. And then that's just going to make you end up feeling more miserable if you do end up getting it. On the flip side, there might be actually some things that you personally do care about that if you do have it, it's going to add to your life. But you don't know, you might not necessarily know if that's the case or not. So hopefully that helps to sort of put to bed whether materialism is actually a trap, because the answer is yes and no. It can be a trap, but it can also be a massive benefit. It really depends on how you frame it. And if you find that you've gone through all of those questions and you still want the thing and you can handle it, then great, go for it. If it makes sense to have it, then great, because it can be a reward. If you are accomplishing specific objectives that you set for yourself, treating yourself to something nice can be a massive benefit, because you're telling your brain that you're headed towards the right direction, you're making yourself feel a lot better. On the flip side, if you feel you've gone through it and you're thinking that you don't really have a compelling enough reason to go ahead and move forward with a specific item, then perhaps it's not the right reason. Perhaps you don't need it. In which case, you'll probably be happier and substantially better off as a result of not indulging in it. It's about really just identifying whether you should or shouldn't indulge in something. It's not about picking one side or the other. It's about just understanding if it's the right time, and two, if it's actually what you want. And that's it. If you follow this framework, you'll find that you'll be able to clear a lot of the temptation for specific things in your mind, and you'll be able to just concentrate on the things that actually do matter to you. And if materialistic things do matter to you, great, more power to you. If they don't, cool, more power to you. But at least you now have some sort of an operating system, or at least a framework to help you get to a decision, or at least get close to a decision to make sure it's the right decision for you. And that's it. If you enjoyed this kind of video, please let me know. I'm recording this on my iPhone versus my laptop because the camera quality is just a lot better. But let me know. Maybe you don't like, I mean, you probably will like better camera quality, obviously, but perhaps you might like, say, laptop style videos where maybe I'm going on like a whiteboard or whatever. But yeah, let me know in the comments if you prefer this style of content, or if you prefer different topics as well that I talk about. So obviously I know that the last video I made was about AI, and this one is completely different. So yeah, let me know your thoughts, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Peace.